Welcome to Dwight's Show. I'm your host, Knack,
Harry.
and today we're here to talk about capitalism. So, Harry, what do you think capitalism is?
I think capitalism is a system of economics so that individuals can compete against others for themselves. It's like a way of individually competing instead of socially competing. It's making making individuals in charge of their own lives instead of governments or countries trying to regulate people of their own wealth.
I see. Well, personally, I have a very different viewpoint in terms of what I think capitalism is. I think capitalism is just the allocation of resources. That is the most fundamental part of capitalism. The competition part is a side effect of the allocation of resources by multiple different individuals or firms.
So you're saying competition is the consequence of the capitalism, or
In search for fully maximizing the allocative efficiency, we need competition. And that is why I think capitalism is a much needed beneficiary towards our society.
I mean, I do think capitalism is needed in our society. It can't be said that without capitalism we can't stand, I don't know, 100 years. But the thing is, I'm saying that capitalism's disadvantage is like way high than the advantage it serves. I mean, it still is the best way we've got. However, I don't think we can make a better one.
What sort of disadvantages would you say then?
I would first talk about the inequality between the wealth gap. Capitalism is like the modern way of creating wealth gap between the poor and the rich. As society goes on, inheritance create gap between the initial start, making it unfair, making everything that capitalism goes against wrong. Because it's not fair if you have inheritance between your parents. That just chooses your life as it's born with. That's like saying that's a similar concept of racism. You're just born with it. You can't change that.
I see. Well, I do agree that for economists, one of the major objectives is not only just economic well-being, but it's also income, tackling income inequality. And I agree that there are some individuals out there who might have a much better start compared to some others. However, I feel like that's not necessary at the fault of capitalism. Like I said, capitalism is just maximizing the allocation of resources, and and obviously we need to tackle income inequality. But that is not something that the free market can do alone. That is more of a governmental issue.
I see. So you're saying this difference in this start is not only because capitalism, it's because of the many different things that come together.
Yes. Because at its core, capitalism is just allocation of resources. All the other layers that build up onto capitalism is the effects that we see today, such as income inequality. Because the free market itself cannot solve all the problems. I think a great example of this is the environment. And the environment is it's a wide, big resource that any company or any individual can use. But in order to protect the environment so that we have sustainability, which is another core economic concept, the government in that situation has to intervene. The cooperation with the private and the public sector is what makes capitalism and the free market so effective at not only increasing the well-being of many people around the world, but also advances in technology. I mean, if you look at, say, countries like China, China over the years has been experiencing massive economic growth, way higher than most other nations could ever imagine. And if you just go to a city like Beijing or Shenzhen or Guangzhou, you feel the technology around you, and that's all because of the corporations being allowed to freely innovate and allocate their resources.
I see what you're talking about, but I still don't get it. However, because of that because the reason why the technology evolved is not because I see the point of how capitalism played a role in that, but it's still the competition which makes the people who wants to create more goods for themselves trying to compete against each other, creating more diverse technologies, which is making the economic growth.
Yeah, that's right. You know, if you really think about it, if there's no competition, why would there be any incentive to move forward? There's no incentive. We would be stuck here right now. We wouldn't have cameras, or we wouldn't have the laptop that you're using right now. We wouldn't have all this technology. We have it because we are always competing against each other. We are in this competition to be the best and survive. And we achieve that by technological breakthroughs, investments in R&D, you know, hiring more employees to manufacture more, for example. It's always the competition drives capitalism and society forward.
I see. Then what do you think about UBI? Because UBI is a concept that is brought from capitalism because that's the only solution we have currently in this diverse society where wealth gaps are divided.
So you're saying that universal basic income is one of the potential solutions to income inequality, correct?
Yes.
Well, my main concern with not income inequality, my main concern with universal basic income is, where's the money coming from? We need the money to give money to people. And if you really think about it in terms of taxes, why not just a tax deduction? Why repackage taxes and add the universal basic income when we can just deduce taxes for income families?
The thing is, the reason why I like or I feel affirmative to UBI is because I do see how capitalism is not bad. I understand it now. However, I still think the unfair start, the inheritance they get from their parents, is still bordering this good way called capitalism. But UBI kind of solves that because UBIs are given by government the equal amount divided by individuals. I see your concern in the amount of money, yes, taxes, that's not enough to back up the number of people in one city, especially in Seoul, you can't back up anybody. But the thing is, I'm arguing UBI is needed for capitalism to make that fair start.
My issue with universal basic income is that it's too centered around equality. Everyone gets $1,000. It will benefit the people at the very bottom. But what about people in the middle? And what about the people at the very top?
But
Their taxes are getting potentially even increased just so that universal basic income can be supplied. And yes, it's going to help the people at the bottom, and it's going to help them get a much needed start. But for the people in the middle and people at the top, they're not getting any benefits. I think we should focus on equity instead of equality in this situation.
Equity, huh? But the thing, yeah, you're right about that. The thing is, if we're going on with the riches and we're leaving down the poor, doesn't that go against capitalism? We see how, so the reason why I'm telling about we're talking about UBI is because I think that kind of sets down a fair stage for people to fight with capitalism. But if we just leave it like this, dividing the poor and the rich, wouldn't capitalism just play a more negative effect on our economy?
Well, I feel like as long as the people with the money spend that money in order to improve the lives of people. I mean, that's what corporations are for. Corporations are here to make our lives better. I mean, you're using an Apple laptop right now, and it makes life way more convenient than using paper, for example. I mean, these corporations are here to help, and with these corporations spending their money in order to cut down cost and increase production to reach economies of scale, that in the long run will help the poor because products are cheaper and they're much better. Wouldn't you say so?
I can't relate to you in this. Just because you gave the example as Apple, I'll just talk about Apple. Where the poor cannot reach an Apple computer. They're economically unstable to do so. But do you think this capitalism, this creation of competition, and this allocation of resources is allowing the poor to reach more closer to this technology that they cannot?
Then let me ask you this. Okay, let's say we do give money. We give this money to the poor. How will we know that this money will be spent responsibly?
That is a bet we should take. The thing is, yes, individuals can waste money as they like. Just like how they probably end up being poor in the first place. They probably had a addiction for drugs or whatever alcohol that makes them waste the money. And yes, giving them UBI would encourage them to do more so. But because of those people, we cannot give up this way of UBI, because if we leave the society like this, I'm scared. Like, besides the fact of how capitalism is acting, I think the wealth gap between the rich and the poor is just far way too divided that we're not able to fix it anymore. Is it, so if so, UBI is not a adequate way. Do you have any ideas of like how we can actually solve this problem? Because I see now how capitalism is important. It's not important, it's essential. It's for the people, and it's the division and the competition is not because of capitalism, it's because of the surrounding environment and the situation people are in. And like what I said, like addiction, those outer sources that manipulates capitalism into making it look bad, but it's actually good. Then if so, we have to keep it good in the good way. But currently, it's not going that way.
I see. Well, I think both, um, whether we're in favor of capitalism, I think both of our objectives is to reduce the poverty gap and reduce the income inequality. And I agree that like there are people out there that are not spending their money responsibly, and I think that can easily be fixed with the help of the government. I think many have this stigma that capitalism, free markets, when the government doesn't intervene. But I think because like the free market cannot always be correct. There'll always be something that is left out, and that's where the government needs to fill in. Government needs to ensure that these corporations are working responsibly and they're actively not putting their money elsewhere, but instead letting the money be used for taxes for other social benefits that corporations are unable to provide, such as healthcare and education, which will definitely help the poor out. But the government needs to do its job properly. It needs to do its job properly so that these corporations are actually helping the people. They're helping us and the people at the bottom line. They need to ensure that the corporations are fulfilling their responsibility. Instead, we have all these corporations like sending their money to like the Bahamas or like Ireland, or we have all these corporations avoiding taxes. That's not helping society. That is not a capitalism issue. That is a more fundamental human issue.
So just to wrap up, just to show my understanding of capitalism, I'll just give an example of Squid Game, because Squid Game is just a so famous show. You're saying capitalism was not the one who created Squid Game. It's about how the Squid Game was created by the minor peoples that are making the mistakes. Like, for example, the creator of the Squid Game, he just had really a lot of money, and he made the wrong choice to make a Hunger Game out of it. And that's not capitalism's fault that's making the Hunger Game. It's just the government and that person's choice that is trying to fake people into thinking capitalism is bad. I get it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you right there. Like when we say, it's all capitalism, capitalism, though, it's not. It's mostly the failure of government responsibility to ensure that it flows perfectly. Because capitalism cannot fix.
The rich is
Every
wasting money.
Yes,
That's what
exactly,
yes.
exactly. All right, that's enough time for today, everybody. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.